Hi, welcome to Bookshelf Chronicles. Remember, a few weeks ago, I did a review of the book Fireproof Happiness, Extinguishing Anxiety and Igniting Hope, written by Dr. Randy Ross. Well, guess what? We have him for an interview here today. So, let's get to meet him and discuss more about that book. I'm glad to have you here.
It's a pleasure to be with you, Risper. Thank you for the invitation.
Thank you for accepting to do the interview with you.
I'm looking forward to discussing the book, and thank you so much for reaching out.
All right. I think we're just going to jump straight to the questions. Can I please know more about you?
So, I'm an author. I've written several books. I also am a speaker, so I travel the country and I speak to corporate groups, mostly, some not-for-profit, but mostly corporate groups, about issues related to leadership dynamics, teams, engagement, culture. We do a lot of conversation, obviously, about health and well-being. That's what the book Fireproof Happiness is about, but that's not our only message. We also have messages about customer service and how do you as a leader become this type of person that inspires fellowship. And so it's about becoming your very best self and how do you lead people effectively. And obviously part of that is emotional health and well-being.
Okay.
Yeah. But part of my background is I started off in the not-for-profit space. And worked with a lot of organizations that were having high impact in the community. And I learned a lot in that environment about how to inspire people to bring their best to work every day. And then I moved over into the for-profit realm, working with organizations, and took a lot of those same principles and lessons. The important part was about helping people find meaning and value in their work. And obviously, when you're working with a volunteer organization, people are compelled to give their time and energy because they feel like they're a part of something larger than self. They want to be a part of a cause, or they want to be a part of a mission. And so I took those same ideas and took them over into the marketplace, into the corporate world, and help organizations craft a culture that's relationally rich, where people enjoy working together, because happy people do better work, right? Happy people do better work. And when you enjoy doing that work with people that you enjoy, then it makes it all the much, more profitable and better. And everybody finds more satisfaction in what they do. So that's a big part of what I do.
Okay. Yeah. What I can also say is, if you're not happy, you will not really do any work, because maybe you'll be thinking about what is bothering you at the moment, why you're sad, and the work environment will not really be okay for you. Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to focus, right?
Yeah.
And we even talk about that in Fireproof Happiness. If you remember, Abraham Maslow had what he called the hierarchy of needs. And it was a way to explain human motivational behavior. And Abraham Maslow understood this, and he understood that if people couldn't take care of their basic needs, food, shelter, and clothing, that they would be consumed with trying to meet that basic need. But then above that, there was security, and then love and belonging, and self-esteem, all the way up to self-actualization. And so what you're talking about is exactly right. If people aren't happy, if they can't meet their basic needs, then it's hard for them to be able to focus on the work at hand. And so we have to help individuals get to the place where that they find purpose and satisfaction in their work. And then therefore they are more creative, they're more collaborative, and the dynamics are much, much better.
All right. That's interesting to know. Yeah. So let's jump straight to the next question.
Okay.
What inspired you to write Fireproof Happiness, Extinguishing Anxiety and Igniting Hope? What was the inspiration behind this book?
The expression behind it is that sometimes when we have difficult times in life, there are challenges. We often talk about being put through the fire. We're being tested. And so what I wanted to do, a friend of mine had challenged me to write a book when COVID first broke out. And obviously we were faced with the global pandemic. There was a lot of fear. There was a lot of anxiety. There was a lot of uncertainty. People didn't quite know how to address the situation effectively, or how to maintain their emotional stability during challenging times. And so I wanted to write a book that would provide an opportunity for people to see the balance between hope and happiness. And I wanted to do it from a scientific standpoint. But the whole idea of fireproof happiness, we talked about in the book that happiness is really a byproduct. It's not something that you can achieve as a goal. It's a byproduct of pursuing life with purpose and doing things for other people that they couldn't do for themselves. So the genesis of the title itself is that I wanted people to be able to understand that happiness is not dependent upon life circumstances. That happiness has to do with what's happening inside of us, not necessarily what's happening around us. That we can make a choice to be happy. And that if we have hope, that hope can offset negative emotional repercussions of hopelessness. And so Fireproof Happiness is an attempt on my part just to be able to express to people some ideas, some principles, and some practices that they can put into place that will help them elevate their hope and thereby elevate their health, their happiness, their productivity, and also hope leads to longevity. So I wanted to draw that connection between the two and help people understand, again, that even through the most difficult times of life, that if we choose to, we can adopt a disposition that faces and embraces difficult times in such a way that we can grow and we can become better, and we can bring a more productive and positive attitude and disposition to life, which in the long run will serve us very well.
Okay. What I can say about the pandemic is, to me, it was one of the most challenging times in my life. I don't know about America, but for us in Africa, you couldn't basically go anywhere. If you step outside your gate, there's security everywhere. And I remember going into a mental state whereby I just thought, how am I going to survive this? I've been inside the house it was months, and I couldn't. If you talk to people, but people are also depressed, you can't ask them for advice. And then I thought maybe the world is coming to an end, just out of my point of view. But it was really challenging on my mental health. I wish I'd read this book during lockdown too. That really helped me to get through the mental issues. But yeah, reading it 2 years later, it still helps a lot. And thanks for writing the book.
Well, it's interesting because we all have to face difficulties in life, right? And the common thread of humanity is that everybody suffers challenging times. Now, some are much more extreme than others. But if you remember, I write in the book about an individual by the name of Viktor Frankl. And you may recall the story of Viktor Frankl. But Viktor Frankl faced horrific life circumstances. I mean, he was a Jewish individual who was taken prisoner in a Nazi concentration camp. Everything that he had was taken away. Everything. All of his worldly possessions. All of his family members were killed in the gas chambers of Auschwitz. And he was conscripted to document some of the worst atrocities that man has ever perpetrated against mankind. And even in the midst of that, he came out on the other side of that experience, and he wrote a book called Man's Search for Meaning. And for me, it's one of the greatest encouragements, because what he basically said is that all of your worldly possessions can be taken away, and everyone around you that you love can be taken away as well. That life is fragile, and we have to handle it with care and concern. But he said, no matter what is happening around you, there's one thing that can never, ever be taken away from you. And that's the power of your personal choice. You get to choose how you will respond to any of life's circumstances. So you get to choose your attitude. You get to choose how you will respond to your persecutors. You get to choose what disposition you will adopt. You get to choose. No one can take away your inner strength to choose to face the future. And I think it's important to remember that regardless of what's happening around you, you can choose to be in control of your inner world. And you can combat anything else on the outside. Because if you think about it, Risper, I mean, what can we control in life?
Nothing.
There's not much we can control.
No,
we can't control the weather. We can't control the economy. We can't control other people. We can't control even what happens to us in many circumstances. The only thing we can control is ourselves.
And how we react to it.
How we react to it. That's exactly right. And so I think that's the secret and that's the essence to happiness. Not that the world gives us everything that we want. A lot of people think that's what happiness is about, and it's not. Happiness is about doing good for other people. Because I know that, I'm the happiest as a husband when my wife is happy. I'm the happiest as a parent when my kids are happy. And I'm the happiest as a team leader when my teams are happy. And so there's a wise man by the name of John Templeton, and he once said, happiness pursued eludes, but happiness given returns. And I think that's really important because even Viktor Frankl said, happiness must ensue. You cannot pursue happiness. It must ensue. In other words, happiness comes about as you focus on giving happiness to others. Excuse me. And I think that's what makes life rich and meaningful.
There's also another saying, if you're a giver, you'll benefit more than a person who receives. So if you give happiness, that in turn you'll receive more joy in your life than if you're actually looking for happiness. But giving it is better than receiving it.
That's well said. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Happiness, all the important things we want in life, like happiness, success, fulfillment, all comes by enriching other people's lives.
All right.
So very true.
Yeah. All right. So I think we just got the next question. What are some common misconceptions about happiness and anxiety that you address in your book?
Well, there are a lot of misconceptions about hope, right? And hope is directly connected to happiness. One of the misconceptions about hope is that it's wishful thinking, but wishing is totally different than hope. Wishing is passive while hope is active. Let me define hope. We define hope as a dynamic motivational system tied to inspirational goal setting, meaning that happiness does not come as a result of achieving certain goals. Happiness is in the pursuit of those goals. So as you pursue meaningful goals, that's when fulfillment and satisfaction is a part of the human experience, because it's establishing something worthwhile, doing something worthwhile that makes life rich and full. So it's not wishful thinking, but hope is also not a Pollyanna attitude, not seeing life through rosy-colored glasses or thinking that the glass is half full. It's more than a positive attitude. Now, positivity is the first belief of hope, what we call the buoyancy beliefs of hope. It starts with positivity, but positivity is not enough to get you through the most challenging times of life. And so it's not a Pollyanna attitude, and hope is not denial. It's not sticking your head in the sand and, waiting for the storm to pass and hoping that you remain unhurt through the process. And there's a saying that you may be familiar with. We use it a lot here in the United States. And it's hope is not a strategy. I don't know if you've ever heard that before.
Yeah.
But I actually believe that hope is actually your best strategy, because if you're involved in an activity or an endeavor and the people who are participating in that endeavor are hopeless, then there's no chance that that endeavor is going to be successful. So I think any worthwhile objective, any worthwhile endeavor must be grounded in hope. And the interesting thing is, as you read in the book, that hope is the foundation for health. People who are hopeful are much more healthy. People who are hopeful are much more happy. They're much more productive. The research bears that out in multiple ways. Hopeful students make better grades. Hopeful salespeople make more sales. Hopeful people are just much more productive. But the interesting thing is, hopeful people also live longer. So there's a tremendous amount of benefit to working on and elevating your hope. And part of that is that hope has this capacity to combat stress, anxiety, uncertainty. And we talk about in the book where it's actually possible to maintain hope and hopelessness simultaneously. Some people may think that there's this spectrum between one end of the spectrum is hopeful and the other is hopeless, but that's not necessarily true. You can both be hopeless. Your situation is very difficult. Think about someone who's been diagnosed with a life-threatening illness. Someone who, by all practical wisdom and doctor's analysis, life is coming to an end. Even in a dire circumstance, when someone is deathly ill and there's no, positive result of a prognosis, even then, someone can be extremely hopeful. And I set several examples in the book about people who may be facing death, who bring the brightest spirit, and hopefulness into that daily occurrence, that daily situation. And it transforms not only that person, but it transforms everyone around them. So I think the interesting thing is that hopefulness can offset the negative repercussions of hopelessness, even when someone is holding on to both of those realities together. And we talk a lot in the book about embracing the totality of your reality, no matter how difficult it may be. That's one of the 4 buoyancy beliefs that help people elevate their hope.
Let's go to our next question. What advice do you have for individuals who are struggling to find happiness and peace in their lives?
I think probably a good place to start would be to adopt the buoyancy beliefs. We talk about the 4 buoyancy beliefs that help people gain more positivity, more of an optimistic, hopeful attitude. And those are, first of all, positivity. It's the belief that I know that my tomorrow can be better than today, no matter how difficult the circumstances may be. And that's where it has to start. And we said that positivity is not the totality of hope, but it's a good starting. It's the foundation. And so positivity, that belief that I know that my tomorrow can be brighter. But the second belief is responsibility. Responsibility says, I'm not a victim of circumstances, but I have a say in how my life unfolds, and I'm going to be proactive. I'm going to make a difference. And so responsibility just simply means that I can't control very many elements in my environment, but I can, like we talked about earlier, I can control me. And I will not allow life to put so much negative pressure on me that it causes me to lose my character, causes me to lose my optimistic disposition. So responsibility says, I will take charge and I will write the next chapter of my life in the best way that I possibly can. The third principle or belief, buoyancy belief, is the understanding of agility. And agility says that there's not just one way to get to a desired destination, but I can demonstrate creativity, I can demonstrate flexibility, I can have the agility that if one path is blocked, I can figure out some way to creatively get around that obstacle Or if I need to, I can take an alternate route. I can go a different path and still get to the same destination. Or if necessary, if it's too costly or it doesn't make sense or circumstances change and that desired destination is no longer a reality, I can always choose another destination. I can re-goal, as it were. And then the fourth buoyancy belief is embracing your reality. The positivity to know that in the end you will persevere, but it has to be coupled with the discipline of embracing your reality, no matter how bleak or harsh it may be, because in embracing your reality, you face the truth of what's before you, and you know what you have to overcome. You know what you have to conquer in order to move forward. So I think that people who may be struggling with anxiety, it's an acronym if you look at it. Positivity, P, responsibility, R, agility, A, and your reality, Y. P-R-A-Y, prayer, pray.
Yeah.
Faith has to come into elevating our hope, because faith opens you up to the possibility that there are resources beyond yourself that you have the opportunity to tap into. And I think that opens up a whole world of possibilities.
All right. That's okay. I've learned something new here. Let's go to the next question. Discuss the role of forgiveness and letting go of the past in achieving fireproof happiness. You talk a little bit. Yeah. Let's go deeper into it.
Yeah, I think forgiveness is critical because forgiveness frees the human spirit of the baggage of resentment and the baggage of bitterness. Forgiveness is critical to cleansing the soul. When someone has done something against us, perpetrated a wrong, when someone has hurt or offended us, we can carry that with us through a grudge or deep resentment. But the challenge in a situation like that is that it's not the impact that it has on the other person as much as the impact that it has upon us. And Viktor Frankl, again, is a great example of this, where he saw the incredible atrocities that were perpetrated against the Jewish people during the Nazi regime. Yet he also understood that for him, as he watched the depth and the love of humanity, as people would comfort one another as they walked to the gas chambers, and he came out on the other side and had an incredible ability to look back on that experience and realize that the men who had committed those atrocities were human.
Yeah.
That while their cause was unjust, and while their actions were horrendous, that the best thing that he could do for them and for himself was to forgive those who had committed those atrocities. And I think that for all of us, we have to remember that forgiveness begins in the heart. Number one, it comes from God. But number two, when we cleanse our heart of all of the anger and bitterness, it opens us up to a whole world of better opportunities that bitterness and resentment and anger keep us from being able to experience. So it's absolutely necessary to pursue happiness. It is absolutely a huge cornerstone for hope.
All right. Let's go to the next question. What is your favorite quote and favorite story in that book?
My favorite story. I love the story of my friend Reggie. We were talking earlier about this ability to hold hope and hopelessness at the same time. And one of my friends, Reggie, had a lung replacement, and his lung worked fine for a while, but then he discovered that he had cancer as well. And he was in this dilemma that if he addressed the cancer, the lungs would fail. But if he did what was necessary for the lungs, the cancer would spread.
Yeah.
And so Reggie came to the difficult realization that his time on earth was limited, and he was relatively young, and you would think that he would have had a much more extensive lifespan, but Reggie was an incredible individual who saw purpose in everyday life, and he celebrated everyday life. And he went to extraordinary lengths to love on the people around him in the final days of his life.
Mm-hmm.
But the incredible thing is that even on his dying day, he had this bright, upbeat, optimistic attitude. He was filled with hope because he was a man of faith, and he knew that after this life came to an end, that he had an eternity in heaven. And I think that realization for him allowed him, even on his dying day, to be filled with hope and happiness and expectation.
Yeah.
And if Reggie on his dying day could have that kind of hope, then I think that you and I can have hope, no matter how difficult life circumstances may be. We can have hope and find fulfillment and meaning on a non-dying day. And it's just a great reminder to me, again, that the power of being connected in faith to a higher power, a relationship with God, but then the ability to be able to see meaning and purpose in every single human encounter, that everything is a gift from God.
Yeah.
And I think that's the power of being able to live life with purpose and passion.
Can you please tell us your favorite quote in the book?
I think the one by John Templeton that we said earlier, that happiness pursued eludes, but happiness given returns. I love that quote because it reminds us that we can't be self-focused, that it's all about giving to others.
How has writing the book Fireproof Happiness, Extinguishing Anxiety and Igniting Hope impacted your life?
The way it's impacted my life is it's given me an opportunity really to think through and coalesce a lot of ideas that I've very much held dear to my heart over many years, but it gave me an opportunity to put it all together in one form and bring it to the public to provide some encouragement to them. So I think it was a great opportunity for me to really think through and synthesize a lot of beliefs that I had, and then be able to back it up with research. So it was just a good encouragement for me to be able to apply a lot of the practices and principles that I've believed for a long time. And I'm really excited about the impact that it's having in the market and the help that it's providing for people.
All right. I think that was our last question, but I'm glad to have had this interview with you.
Well,
yeah.
Thank you for the time, and I wish you all the best in your every endeavor. And thank you for the interview.
All right. Thank you too, and have a lovely morning.
You as well. Take care.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Dr. Russ, for doing the interview with me. It has been an amazing and very educative experience. To my viewers, thank you for watching the video. Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe. I remain your host, Rispa Oma. Thank you and see you next time. Bye.